Arguably the biggest Big 12 conference matchup of this year's slate is set for Monday night out in Lubbock, Texas, when a top 10 matchup between the number 5 Houston Cougars and Texas Tech Red Raiders is set to take place at the USA. In today's video, we'll discuss the matchups that matter, the stats that matter, the odds, and I'll give my prediction, as well as, is Texas Tech out of the Big 12 Conference regular season title race with a win over Houston on Monday night? We'll discuss that and much more. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast, and this is one of the bigger games on the schedule for the Red Raiders, and you know what I'm about to ask you. Head down to the pinned comment below, and you tell me your score prediction for number 5 Houston at number 9 Texas Tech. This is a huge game in the Big 12. We'll look at the conference standings here in a little bit as Texas Tech is really got some ground to make up. Let's say that, because Houston has distanced themselves from the rest of the field. But could Texas Tech be back in it with a win? We'll discuss that as some other things in this preview video. But before we get into that, let me know your score prediction for number 5 Houston at number 9 Texas Tech. All right, let's jump into this. As you can see on your screen right there, Houston 15-1 in the Big 12 this year. Their one loss, I should say, at home to your number 9 Texas Tech Red Raiders. So the Houston Cougars will come in motivated. I can tell you that much. Kelvin Sampson will have those guys ready. They are 23-4 on the year, are the Cougars. The Red Raiders come into this matchup 21-6 with a 12-4 conference record. LJ Cryer is the leader in terms of points per game for Houston. He is coming off of an absolute stud performance against Iowa State this past Saturday. You've got Uzan, you've got Roberts. You are familiar with these names if you are a Big 12 basketball fan. Now, Texas Tech is obviously led by JT Toppin, and he was quiet against West Virginia, but he was still really good. It's wild. He may be the most quiet, just, oh my goodness, I didn't realize he had that many points or rebounds type guy that I can remember at Texas Tech. He had 22 for the Red Raiders in their past matchup against West Virginia. Now, I bring up JT Toppin to say this too. If you remember, let's go back to early February. What happened in that Houston game? You may remember that was the game that Grant McCaslin got ejected from because JT Toppin had one of the most egregious calls I have ever seen in any sport called against him. He had an F2 called against him because they thought that they actually, in that moment, JT Toppin decided, you know what I'm going to do? Kick a guy below the waist. What a dumbass thing that the Big 12 thinks that they have good officiating. It's terrible, and it was on full display down in Houston. Now, for the Red Raiders in that game, good for them. They responded. Jeff Linder took over as the head coach. You had Chance McMillan leading the way on the floor for Texas Tech, and they upset Houston down in H-Town for a Big 12 victory in Houston's only Big 12 loss on the year. Now, let's go look at some of the stats in this one because it's really, really interesting. I'll tell you that. Offensively, Texas Tech is better than Houston, right? They average about 6 points more per game, but then you head on over to the right side of your screen. Oh, buddy. Houston is by far the best defense in this conference, and arguably the best defense that this conference has seen since, well, either Houston's defense or that one that Texas Tech had when they went to the national title back in 2018, 2019. They are really good. The most interesting part about just the scoring aspect in this game is if we go down to margins, Houston and Texas Tech are clearly the two best teams in terms of margin from how many points they score to how many points they allow in the Big 12 conference. Houston scores 17.4 more points per game than they allow, and Texas Tech scores about 15 points more than they allow. It's going to be super interesting. Now, when we get down to field goal percentage, Texas Tech shoots about 48% from the field. BYU actually took over in this one after their upset win over in Tucson against the Wildcats of Arizona. Houston, not too far behind Texas Tech, 2 percentage points, but this is where the difference lies in this matchup in terms of that Houston defense is absolutely suffocating. They allow opponents to shoot 38% from the field. That is unreal. Now, you go on over to the three-point side of things. These are the two best three-point shooting teams in the conference, and it's really not all that close when you look at it. Houston, they don't shoot very many threes, but damn it, they make a lot of them, 40% to be exact. They don't have as many as, Texas Tech. Texas Tech has shot over 140 more threes, or just under 140, more threes on the year than Houston, okay? But Houston, they have a better percentage. Texas Tech, the second best three-point shooting team in the conference at 38.4. Now, when it comes to what they allow their opponents to shoot, this is really the differentiator between these two in terms of who's going to be closer here. We talk about this damn near every game for Texas Tech. Is Texas Tech going to allow Houston to shoot closer to what they allow, 32%? And is Houston going to allow Texas Tech to shoot closer to what they allow their opponents to shoot from three, 32%? They are dead even there, are the Cougars and the Red Raiders. Whichever team shoots closer to their opponents in terms of opposition allowed field goal percentage from three, I think is going to have a really good chance to win this basketball game. And we'll look at the odds here in a second. But we go to rebounding. Texas Tech and Houston, very similar in a lot of ways in this one. Combined opponents rebounds, Houston doesn't allow a lot of rebounds in this one. But they also, it's one of those deals when they look at the defensive side of it, you look at Houston, they're solid in terms of defensive rebounds, but nothing crazy. They're 11th in the conference. But offensive rebounds is where they thrive. They average nearly 13 per game. Do the Cougars, the Red Raiders average about 11 and a half. That's going to be the difference in this one because both teams are very similar in terms of rebounds per game. These are the clear two best teams in the Big 12, in my opinion, right now. That's not a knock on Iowa State. I know that they've been going through some things, and I even know that, Iowa State beat Texas Tech by 1 point out in Lubbock. But right now, Texas Tech and Houston, it feels like, are the two best teams in the Big 12, but there's a clear top four, if that makes sense, where it's Houston number one. You can't negotiate that, in my opinion. And then if you want to put Texas Tech at 2, I get it. I would, but you could also put Iowa State there or even Arizona. But this is a clear top 4 matchup at worst in the Big 12 right now. And a lot of these numbers you're going to see are very, very close. Again, total rebounds per game. Texas Tech, 36.9. Houston, 36.8. They are very close. Now, turnovers is where it's different. The turnover margin is phenomenal for Houston. They don't really turn it over, but they turn you over. They average less than 10 turnovers per game. Red Raiders at 10.7. And then Houston creates 14.1. So that is a margin of 4.7 more turnovers created than they give up. Texas Tech at 1.85. Now, the assist-to-turnover ratio, Texas Tech is really good. Best in the Big 12, as you can see on your screen right there. But this is going to come down to if Texas Tech can be, closer to their turnovers that they have as a team, 10.7, compared to Houston's 14.1. If the Red Raiders are closer to that 14.1, it could be a long night out at the USA. And it's going to be jumping out there. We've already seen kids are already camping out and everything for this one. As we move over to the current Big 12 standings, you can see them on your screen right now. The Red Raiders are tied for second alongside the Arizona Wildcats, 3 games behind the Houston Cougars. I'll be honest with you. I think the Big 12 regular season race is probably done. I think Houston has it pretty locked up. Even if Texas Tech does win this matchup, it's going to be hard for Texas Tech to garner and gain 2 games just to even get a share of the Big 12 title with only 3 games remaining. And not to mention the Red Raiders have to go on the road to face Kansas. And it's not that Kansas is, the world beaters, even though that they they beat the crap out of Oklahoma State at home, didn't they? It's the fact that you have to go to Allen Fieldhouse, right? So that's pretty difficult. Houston will come into the 806 with the longest winning streak in the Big 12 as it stands right now, which is 6 games. Now, when you look at the overall metrics of this one, we'll head on over to KenPom, and you can see that this is going to be a top 7 matchup, according to KenPom. On your screen right there, Houston is well up there. I'm talking top 3 in the country, and there is a sizable gap in terms of their net rating compared to Texas Tech. You look at it, it's about 8 points, right? 7 and some change. If you do the difference between Houston and Texas Tech, according to this net rating over on KenPom, Texas Tech would have to go down all the way to basically Baylor. It's that much of a difference. It's big. It's big, okay? In terms of the net rating, that doesn't mean Texas Tech can't compete, obviously. But you look at the net rating now. Moving on over, and Texas Tech is a top 7 team. Same spot. Houston, they are third in the country. Houston actually has 8 quad 1 wins. Texas Tech has 7. The Cougars have 15 total quad 1 and quad 2 wins, while the Red Raiders have 11. But these two teams, according to virtually every metric you look at, are the 2 best teams in the Big 12, albeit it's very close. As you can see, Iowa State and Arizona are not too far behind the Red Raiders in both KenPom and the net ratings. Now we're going to head on over and look at the odds. You can see it on your screen right there down below, and it is right now over on Bart Torvik, and I'll update this in terms of the comments down below when we get the official Vegas odds here in just a little bit. Houston is going to be favored in this matchup. You can see it on your screen. Houston is probably going to be in the range when we get those official Vegas odds. I would suspect this is pretty damn close to a pick'em, if we're going to be honest, but Houston will probably get a point or two, right? I would be surprised if it goes higher than 3, but I think it'll probably open at about 2.5 towards Houston. And that was my initial number before I even saw Bart Torvik in his analytics. So Texas Tech will probably be an underdog at home, and honestly, rightfully so. Houston is really, really good when it comes down to it. But as I get back on the screen here again, this game is going to come down to the little nuances, right? Just like it did down in H-Town, okay? Texas Tech can't turn the ball over. They have to be hyper-aggressive on the boards, and they simply cannot, and I mean cannot, let LJ Cryer get going from the outside. They just can't do it. I think Texas Tech, if they do those 3 things, they have a significant chance to win this basketball game. And it's pivotal for Texas Tech in this regard. If you want to potentially move up to the 2 line, you need to go at worst 3-1 your last 4 games of the regular season. The issue is this. Houston and Kansas are your opponents this week, right? If you could start off 1-0 this week and be, quote unquote, house money going into Allen Fieldhouse, a place historically not very many teams are good, including you, Texas Tech. But if you can do that, right, it would not only show to the committee that you have arguably the most impressive sweep of any team in the country this year. Think about it. Houston could only have 2 losses in the Big 12 this year, and they could both beat a Texas Tech. Okay, that would be a monumental type deal for Texas Tech in terms of their seeding and potentially solidifying themselves as not only a 3 seed, but maybe even sneaking into a 2 seed. But again, you got to handle business on the floor, and it starts with the 3 things that Texas Tech knows that they have to do, right? And they have gotten better at them as the years progressed, okay? They have to limit the turnovers. They have to win the rebounding battle, and they have to play great perimeter defense, because if they don't, Houston will abuse you with the likes of really Sharp, Cryer, Uzan. Roberts is solid on the outside, 1 bounce, much like JT Toppin, and getting to his left hand. You have to win the physicality battle, and that's something that is going to be easier said than done against a bona fide elite Houston team. It's going to be a ton of fun out in the 806. All right, that's going to do it. Again, you tell me down on the pinned comment below your score prediction for number 5 Houston at number 9 Texas Tech. And at the time of this recording, the updated AP poll has not come out yet, so maybe these rankings change. I would assume they do, but at the time of this recording, it is number 5 Texas Tech, or number 5 Houston, against number 9 Texas Tech on Big Monday. It is going to be an absolute clash of the Titans within the Big 12 Conference there on bona fide primetime, 8 o'clock Central on ESPN. Again, let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech men's basketball all year long, leading into March. We're almost there, people. It's almost the greatest time of the year. March Madness is almost here, and your Red Raiders will be a part of it and be a big part of it. I can promise you that. So if you want to stay in the know 100% free on everything Texas Tech men's basketball, again, simply like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to join the Back to 12 squad today. And as always, stay safe and Reclam Tech.